The first novel came out a few years ago that was simply entitled Perpetual. Many of you may have this already in your libraries or have read it. Perpetual is an adventure novel, a suspense, some say a conspiracy novel. And over the last few years, I've been writing the series. So many of you wrote and said, what's going to happen next? And little did you know, I was in the process of putting that together. And now there's the trilogy is available. So you have the first book, which is similar, almost identical to the first edition, which came out a number of years ago. And this one is called Search, Perpetual Search. You have the second book now, which is Perpetual Assassins. And now you have the third book, A Perpetual Abducted. So all three in the trilogy are out, and books 4 and 5 are in the editing process. You'll be happy to hear. And there's 10 in the series planned. Hopefully all 10 will be out before no time. Anyhow, so the way to purchase Perpetual is to log into my website, which is myname.com. Very simple, very clever. So brianhuey.com. And you can go in and it'll connect you to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or where the discounts are is through the publisher. So just click right in and you'll have 9 choices. Well, there's 3 books and 9 choices. So hopefully you can figure that out. If not, we'll ask the polar bears behind us. You have 3 ebooks you can choose from, or 3 9x6 paperbacks. Or for those who love a hardback version, yes there is, and you can purchase the hardback version of all 3 books. Perpetual Search, Perpetual Assassins, and Perpetual Abducted. So what's Perpetual all about? Perpetual, best way to read it would be to read on the back of it. Spent so much time putting this together. You know, it's easier for me to write 140,000 words, which is a typical size of a book, very dense book, as you will find out, a lot going on in those pages, than it is for me to write 1 paragraph. So we finally came up with this, and I think you'll like it about the trilogy. Perpetual is not for the faint of heart, Dr. Meacher wrote. A startling revelation begins each book, followed by a cliff dive into a pool of multifaceted and exciting characters. There's Matthew and Maria, Dr. Jackson, Cracker Jack, which is one of the most compelling characters, I think you will agree. And then you'll also come across Mr. E, which is most mysterious character in the 3 novels. Exciting situations and conflicts. Once back to the top of the cliff, we find Matthew and Maria, our protagonists, hanging on for dear life. Their intertwined plots twist around a compelling puzzle of subplots for a challenging and fun read. Stay tuned for the impending release of Perpetual Book 4 and 5, which are in the editing process, as I mentioned. Enjoy the ride. Another thing that is fun for me as the author is to read the reviews by different readers, so I'll read a couple of those for you as well. Perpetual delivers. From the intricate opening sequence to the cleverly crafted details, the reader is taken on a delicious journey. Enjoy twists to keep even the most ardent reader of high-octane fiction entertained. That was Dr. Meacher. The second one says, a great story, could not put it down, riveting, filled with action, suspense, and complex relationships. Perpetual is a terrific book. Thank you, Linda Kessler, author and speaker from Palm Beach, Florida. You are drawn into this book without realizing it. Captivating. Roz Morton, CEO of MediaMark. A thrilling ride across the eastern seaboard of the USA. I could not put it down. Robert Banks, a proprietor of Cusick House in Elgol, Scotland. The new Robert Ludlum, somebody says that makes you feel really good. That's the author of the Bourne trilogy. I could see some cross sections there. Perpetual is a plot-twisting, time-shifting, fascinating read. Detailed, and it treats you like a sophisticated reader. I do like to do that. And that's Linda Franco, CFO of Lakeside Education Networks in North Wales, Pennsylvania. So that's just a few. There's 6 or 8 different ones on book 2 and book 3, 6 or 8 more. Basically, I've told you all that I need to tell you before I start reading. It's important for me that you get excited about Perpetual, read the first book, and I guarantee, absolutely guarantee, that when you get through the first book, you'll end up reading the second book and the third book, or wanting them, and hopefully purchase all 3 of them at one time. And I'll tell you more about how to do that at the end of reading the prologue of book 1. So I'm going to go ahead and start that. I'll try to settle back with my fish tank back here on my left shoulder, fireplace on the right shoulder, and my writing studio. Welcome again to the Perpetual Hour, which will not be a full hour. It's a little, well, I write fiction, so hopefully you'll understand that. And without further ado, unless there's something else to read here at the beginning of book 1, I'm going to read from the second edition, which is the book you'll receive. The first edition, which is a collector's edition, is still available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and other great bookstores. And I think you'll enjoy getting into books 1, 2, and 3 now that the trilogy has been released nationwide and worldwide. I'm procrastinating as I get to the beginning here. Okay, prologue. Are you ready? Here you go. I'll try to keep all the interesting things going on in the background so you don't have to just listen to me. Prologue. Revelations, March 17th, 1995. Matthew Thaddeus Eaton sat in the tow truck beside Marcus, the manager of the Miami Beach Shell Station. The VW bus hung off the back of the truck. It was after midnight, and they could hear the faint sound of the South Beach Entertainment coming to life a few blocks away. He helped Maria into the cab and turned his attention to a man standing down the street, Cracker Jack. He was a head taller than all the other FBI agents. They talked in front of the Cuban diner where Matthew and Maria had spent the last hour mesmerized by Cracker Jack's tale of intrigue. Marcus maneuvered the wrecker out of the parking lot with the VW bus in tow. Gunfire erupted. "Bahar!" Marcus yelled for them to get down. Matthew pushed Maria toward the floor as a bullet tore through the door. The gears ground from first to second, and more cracks of gunfire sounded. "We're being shot at!" Maria screamed. "Marcos! Que diablos!" In Spanish, Marcos cursed the wrecker's slowness and said, "You kids keep your heads down. We'll be out of here in no time." Marcus forced the stick into third gear, hit the gas, and the huge wrecker jerked forward. Matthew looked out the window and his eyes met Cracker Jack's. He saw everything, absorbed every detail. He had a recent dream of a plane flying overhead, shooting at the VW bus, but he assumed that it was because he had read too many Jason Bourne novels. There was no plane, but someone was shooting. Cracker Jack's last words in the diner came back to him. "I need your help. You might be my last chance." An FBI agent put his back to Cracker Jack in the corner of the building. The other was firing across the street. Their only protection? A palm tree. Matthew glanced at the 2 men tracking cover behind the U.S. postal box on the other side of the street. He had assumed that they were FBI. Cracker Jack had said he was expecting replacements from his current chaperones, the G-men that had kept him under protective custody. "Stop the truck," Matthew yelled. "We have to get help. Cracker Jack told me to get you kids out of here no matter what." "I don't care what he said. He's out in the open." With that, Marcus brought the rig to a skidding stop a dozen feet past the shootout. Matthew reached over Maria to open the door. He saw one of the agents go down. Crackerjack jerked and fell against the wall, landing in the dirt. A pitch of red bloomed on the shirt in front of him. The two G-men lay sprawled in the sand. They shot them. They shot Crackerjack! Matthew heard someone scream, and then realized it was his own voice. Under the street lamp, the bodies lay still, covered in blood. I have to help him, Matthew said, opening the door. Maria put her hand on his chest. No, you'll be shot! Marcus ground the vehicle into gear. The pungent smell of gasoline and exhaust filled the cab. With a tremor in his voice, Marcus said, It's too late, amigo. It's too late. He barely missed a parking car on the narrow street before he got the rig under control. They drove 2 or 3 blocks before a bullet shattered the rear window inches above Matthew's head. We have to go back, Marcus. There's a chance he's alive. He grimaced and said, My job is to get you kids out of here, and that's what I'm going to do. Your job? The rig was pushing 40 as bullets twanged off the back. Before Matthew could yell, the truck barely missed hitting a grizzled man holding a bottle to his lips in one hand and gripping his fully stacked shopping cart with the other. He froze in suspended animation a second before diving like an Olympic athlete out of their path. Marcus swerved and smashed 2 large garbage cans before regaining control. Matthew looked out the shattered rear window at the green sedan that was catching up to the VW bus, bouncing around like a tetherball behind the wrecker. A man who Crackerjack had once called Cue Ball leaned out against the passenger window. He smiled and leveled his gun. Matthew grabbed the wheel and Marcus objected as they veered away, barely missing a group of pedestrians. They careened into the Ocean Drive Park area, knocking over a cast iron bench. Marcus regained control and Matthew let go of the wheel. Hijos de puta, Marcus yelled. Que locura! There's no seatbelts, Maria said, waving her hands. Bring it up to my boss, Marcus shot back. If we live. He muttered something in Spanish that Matthew could not understand and swung the wheel into the path of the approaching sedan. Maria screamed, What are you doing? Matthew looked into Cue Ball's glaring eyes and then at the gun. He tensed, expecting the bullet. Before Cue Ball could shoot, the wrecker careened into the sedan with such force that Matthew thought the 4-ton wrecker would flip. Instead, the impact thrust the car upward, and it fell back on its top, crushing the passengers like potato chips in a bag. Sparks flew with the sound of metal scraping the pavement. The sedan looked like a 4th of July sparkler before hitting the short stone wall, rolling 2, 3, 4 times before landing right side up on the sand. Madre Santo de Dios, Marcus whispered, crossing himself. That was close. Damn good gamble, Marcus, Matthew said. Maria also drew the sign of the cross, then held tighter to Matthew. The trio traveled west on 5th Street, north on Alton, and over the MacArthur Causeway, then headed south onto Route 1. End of the prologue. And the next part is part 1, Perpetual Sun, which will start with chapter 1, which is Invent, 1955 to 1973, where we'll meet Cameron T. Jackson. What the heck is that going on above my head in the fish tank? Anyhow, so without further ado, I'll just remind you that to buy the books, you just need to go to my website, brianhuey.com, and you'll be able to pick up the first book, Search, which that is just a touch of the suspense that you'll experience. And trust me, when you get to the end of the book, you'll be like, okay, where's book 2? And like the Netflix and Prime that you belong to, you'll be able to go right to Assassins and not have to wait until next year for the next book to come out, because I've finished that and it's ready to go. And when you get to the end of Assassins, you'll be able to go right to book 3 in the trilogy, which is Abducted. So without further ado, I said that before, and I'll end this YouTube short, which is only 15 minutes. So the Perpetual Hour this time is only 15 minutes. Watch for phase 2, which will be chapter 1 of book 1. and then I'll try to continue that as we go. But in the meantime, please hook into Perpetual, and you'll make this author very happy. And I hope you enjoyed my reading of the prologue of Book 1. Have a wonderful day, and thank you very much.